things going wrong when those guys are jumping on the bandwagon. On the other hand, we have this trend towards software as a service. I started in a so-called application service provider back in 1999, which is now turned into software as a service. So this idea of having some software that is delivered and managed remotely by somebody else. So there's one sector, I guess, is enterprise application software, ranging from things like Microsoft Exchange through to CRM software like Salesforce, for example. Now we've got Office suites from people like Google, Zoho, ERP, Microsoft's in there, Cashflow, Xero, a New Zealand company, supply chain management, HR. So there's lots of companies now who are either trying to turn their software into a service business, or they're offering the two in parallel, or they're startups, for example Xero, who have said, let's build an application specifically targeted not to sell software but to sell a recurring revenue stream, generate a recurring revenue stream. So there's lots of other services out there as well, whether it's travel expense management. There's a New Zealand company who does very well in that space, and it's called Serco and so on. So there's this trend towards software as a service, and in fact the forecasts by Gartner and all these other people are basically saying software as a service is going to grow faster than traditional software sales. So the forecast from 2008 to 2009 in this market is about an 18% increase in this software growth versus about half that for normal software. So it's not to say that everyone's jumping on the bandwagon very quickly. This has been going on for a decade, but there's definitely a trend towards buying services rather than buying software. By the way, feel free to fire any questions at me anytime. So we take those two trends and say, okay, so we want to build a business. What do you need to do to build a business? Well, according to Michael Porter, you have either a cost advantage or a differentiation advantage. So in order to keep being profitable over time, you need to have some sort of competitive advantage. Michael Porter's the guy who came to New Zealand and tried to fix all our problems back in the 90s. So are you in the business of selling software? Well, as we heard earlier today, actually you're not. You're trying to retain customers. You're trying to meet a customer need. So how are you going to do that? You're either going to give something to people that's the same and cheaper than what they can get elsewhere, or else you're going to give them something better. Maybe you can do both, but generally you're better to focus on one or the other. At least that's what the academics would say. So if you want to create a service business, what are your options? You can build it or you can buy it. Now you can't always buy it, because maybe the service business that you want to deliver is completely unique. But maybe you can buy it. We're in telecommunications. You can go out and go to Broadsoft and pay $1 million, and you can get a hosted whatever you want, and then they'll charge you ongoing license fees for every little feature you want to do. Alternatively, you can do what we did, which is to build that. If you build it, it'll probably take you longer, and that may be a problem, because the opportunity may have gone. But if you build it, you can differentiate yourself, whereas if you buy it, it's much harder to do that. So, for example, the ASP that I started in the UK in the late 90s, we were just hosting Microsoft Exchange, and that's fine until someone else does that. And then how do you differentiate yourself? You either have to do it on service, which people actually don't believe. People don't generally believe it when you go to say to them, we offer a better service than the other guys. Or you differentiate yourself on price. And that can end in tears. If you build it, then you have people who have a better product knowledge than if you buy it. And for me, that's a very important differentiator, because when people call you up and have a problem, if you've got the people who built the product helping those people, you may not want them answering the phone, because those type of people may not necessarily be very good with customers. But if you have them very close to your customers, then you're able to find out very, very quickly what the pain points are that those customers are having, what customers are asking, and you can feed that straight back into your product development. And that will lead to you having a better product. If you've bought the product, you're just going to refer all those hard questions off to the supplier, and then you have to go through the support loop. If you build it, it may be cheaper or it may not. If you build it yourself and you don't have many customers, then it's going to be expensive. If you build it yourself and you get a lot of customers and you're not having to pay license fees, then it's going to work out cheaper and much more profitable. The other thing about buying is that any extra features typically cost. If you buy some product and you want the enterprise version, or the one that does call recording, or the one that does this, that, and the next thing, that's an add-on feature. And so then you have to say, okay, well, can I really afford the $100,000 up front for that fee, and then the ongoing license charges per user? So that comes back to the differentiation. If we can offer that, those add-on services by building those, and we're not having to pay lots and lots of license fees, then we can offer a better service to our customers. Another difference is that you end up with more staff if you build it yourself, unless you contract out that to external people, if you trust external people to do your development. Whereas with the buy option, you're going to be spending more on license costs. You'll have less staff, all things being equal. So who are these companies? These are companies who are out there right now offering services built on open source software. There's a number of them, and these are all significant players in their marketplace. Zoho does. Anyone heard of Zoho? Zoho's like a Google Apps type competitor, built on CentOS, MySQL, Tomcat, Hadoop, Google Gears. Amazon Web Services. Anyone use Amazon Web Services here? One. I'd say in a few years there'll be a lot more people using that type of service, because it is really amazing. And if you take one piece of advice away, I would say anything you build, you should build with the cloud, so-called, in mind. Forget the other way of building things, where you assume that everything's on a machine or physically closely associated with each other. Forget that. Pretend that everything can be separated out and has to be effectively messages between them. But that stuff with Amazon is built using Linux and Zen, basically. So, Amazon Web Services is pretty cool. Right Now, which is a sort of a CRM product used by large corporates like Vodafone, again built using Linux, Apache, MySQL. Facebook runs on the LAMP platform, Yahoo, Google, all run very, very large service-based businesses running on open source software. So it can be done, and if those guys are doing it, and there's some big names there, then it's a smart thing to do. So we built an open source telephony company using primarily those first two bits of software, which is Asterisk, well known. 2008, 16% of new lines sold in the US. In other words, PABX sales in the US was Asterisk. So that's pretty phenomenal, which is about the same size as the biggest other PABX provider, which is Nortel. And we all know well, I don't know if you know, but Nortel had some serious financial issues recently. So, it's having a big impact. Kamailio, which is a SIP proxy, is a company in Germany called 1&1. They process 1 billion minutes per month using Kamailio, which is basically shifting calls around. So these are not toys. These are extremely valuable pieces of software that in the past you would have had to pay